Hi, this is Cheryl. I'm so happy that you're joining me today. Trust that this safe and loving space is exactly where you're supposed to be to ignite your higher self and empower you at this very moment in time. There are no coincidences. Trust the nudges that speak to you. Hello and welcome to my Psychic Ability series. This is a 5-part series, and we are working on number 3. So, number 3 in the psychic abilities that I want to just capture that single ability. And I'm really working at trying to give you just some basic information about one psychic ability at a time. So today's topic is clairsentience. So how I'm going to work this episode is very much how I worked the other in this 5-part series. Is I'm going to talk about the background and the psychic abilities in clairsentience in particular. I'm going to move it to how I use this psychic ability in my mediumship, and then how I validate using it both professionally and personally. Then I'm going to have a very intimate share today on this clairsentience, and I'm going to talk about being witness to an actual passing, which was extremely moving and very, as I said, intimate. So I'm going to start with just defining psychic as I have, and I feel as though the more you hear it, you're like, okay, I got this. All right, yeah, I have this. So the word psychic actually means that you use your senses that are not explained by your human senses. And our human senses are seeing, feeling, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. And I know some of you are thinking about, well, what about my sixth sense? Now we're talking, and I am 100% with you on that. I am going to just talk about the sixth sense being that all of these psychic abilities. And again, the psychic abilities that I've kept separate in a 5-part series. So today, I'm going to talk about the clear. And the clairs are, again, the Latin prefix that means clear. And that matches up with our physical sense, which in this case is going to match up with touching. So clairsentience matches up with touching, and it's a looser fit than the other two that we've talked about, but it is a psychic ability, and you're going to see. And when I talk about my mediumship, I really do use it more touching than feeling, but sometimes they just integrate beautifully. But clairsentience is truly defined as clear feeling emotions that can't be explained through a natural source, highly in tune with your feelings and others. So if you did have this psychic ability, if this was a strength of your sixth sense or your psychic abilities or your psychic senses, however you wish to feel with that, is you feel spirits around you. You might even feel others' energies. And not really having to talk more about it. We all have differing levels of our abilities. So again, I'm just kind of giving the foundational pieces, but certainly step into your heart, step into your abilities, and feel more. That is the hope of this whole entire podcast, truly. So I do want to talk about like if you're in a room and you have a lot of people in there, and there are other times where you just feel like you're crawling out of your skin. It doesn't have to be negative energy. Sometimes negative energy makes it even more difficult. And that leads me to kind of just talk very quickly about an empath. So clear sentience or clear feeling, this is the hotbed for an empath. Now, I know in the earth plane or in human talk, people feel that sensitive people are empaths, and they could be, but to me, in my spiritual perspective, and I always speak from my spiritual perspective and encourage others to just take what feels right for you. But in my spiritual understanding and knowledge, is empaths are not just sensitive. In fact, generally they aren't even sensitive. But empaths are extreme because they carry on this high degree of feeling others' pain, others' emotions, and they carry that on. They live that, they claim that, and it becomes a very difficult situation for them to kind of find boundaries and find ways of ridding that. So I'm not going to go too much more deeply in empaths because that's a whole different episode, which I'm sure I will get to. But I do want to just say that clairsentience is really where the empaths certainly have the highest psychic ability because that is their place where they reside and work with. So, what does a clear sentience feel when you're just speaking of it as a human and just seeing if humanly is that something that might also work in my psychic sense? Well, do you get gut feelings? Do you, and they could be positive and negative. They don't have to be just negative. Do you feel others' emotions? Do you feel their pain? Have you ever really thought about that? Do you take that on, and not to the level of an empath? Because that is, it almost hurts truly for an empath. It's almost like painful for an empath. I'm just saying, just in your natural day, are you sensitive to others' energies? Do you feel that? Can you not sometimes speak to it, but you just know it's there or you feel it's there? Then maybe you are leaning into your clear feeling ability. And some tendencies for jobs and careers might be because people that have that clear feeling are usually natural healers. They're caregivers, doctors or therapists, counselors, sometimes nannies and teachers also kind of find their own niche, find their home because they do have a high ability of clear feeling. So I am also clairsentient, and so I use that in my mediumship, and I work with it always in my mediumship. I would, if I were to rate it, I would rate it in my mediumship probably the third dominant sense. And I say that because my first two being clear seeing and clear hearing is really they're more concrete. Clairsentience is a feeling, and that isn't always concrete, but you'll see that because I need concreteness, I need validation, I need to know that I'm talking and being in the light, that I do my body does experience touching and feeling in the sense that I can tie it together with my humanness, and I'll explain that. So I do feel when a person, when the clear feeling and the emotions, I'll give you an example where I feel it probably the most, or the most I can give you most my experience with, is as soon as a person comes in for a reading, I can feel their emotions, whether they're sad or scared or curious or excited, etc. All the different emotions. And generally I open myself to feel it because I want to address them. I want to make them feel comfortable. If they're sad or they're scared, um, I will just state, spirit never comes in with warnings or darkness. They always come in light, love, and always wanting to work you into your highest best good. And sometimes that's just enough to put people at ease. And and I always encourage to keep your heart open, because if your heart is open during a reading of any kind of a lighted reading, there's so much you can gain from that. And I also say too that very often they get the messages sometimes before I get the messages. And that is how spirit kind of directs it. I really am just the channel that delivers what spirit wants to have meet their loved one, or meet that spirit for where they with what they need for that particular day. So when I feel energies that are not light, and I'm going to use the word heavy, but I want to also say it's not dark. It's not dark energies. I do know what dark energies feel like as well, but it's heavy energy, like a desperation or extreme grief. Um, Sometimes a hint of cynicism in the process. Because I always say a reading is a gift. And if it's something that doesn't speak to you, then I would encourage you to maybe find another avenue. Because if your heart doesn't come in open and wanting, then the reading really can't give you truly what you need. So if I do feel those kind of heavy energies, I will mention that, and I will try to encourage them to take some breaths, or to open their hearts, because it is a beautiful gift. But sometimes that heaviness still exists. And so when that does happen, I call on my guides. I mean, truly, I say, okay, come on, I need some help. And I'll either see them, or I'll hear, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. So I know, okay, thank you. I'm gonna really need you. I'm gonna want to hold your hand, and I'm going to validate through you sometimes too, depending on how I'm feeling. If I really, because that heavy energy also comes towards me, and sometimes can move into some ego possibilities. So I'm always guarded and watch my boundaries, and making sure that I am. hearing the lighted source and not allowing that ego to come in. So I bring in my guides for that extra reinforcement when I feel like there's a heavier energy coming in. But my experience as a medium also gives itself, it's kind of interesting. I have physical sensations as well that give me understanding of the feeling and or messages. So I want to deliver a couple of those examples to you. So when my head feels dizzy, and I it's so interesting. I wish, and maybe someday I'll do that. I will ask to have electrodes put on my head. Is that dizziness that I feel, is it a true physical sense, or is it in my mind's eye that causes me to feel that? It feels very physical to me. I have to sit down. I just feel cloudy, and I feel like I'm dizzy. I guess that's probably the easiest way to really, I don't need to give a lot of description on that. But when I do feel that physical sensation, it is my clairsentience, it is my clear feeling, and it's trying to give me messages to deliver in a reading. So if I feel dizzy, there's some evidence that needs to come through, that maybe a loved one or maybe the person that I'm sitting with has chaos. Maybe there's a little bit of mental illness or dementia, all those different pieces that kind of affect the human emotions. And it's not a positive. It's something that just is there to validate that there, and sometimes give evidential mediumship to say, was this a loved one? Is this something that they were experiencing? And another example of physical sensations would be pressure in my right ear. And I want to just preface with energy is neither created nor destroyed, it is just transferred. So when I get this pressure in my right ear, it is a really dense pressure. And this lends itself also to the share I'm going to move into in a little bit. And so when the spirit passes just recently, their earth energy is still very dense. So when I see a spirit that's passed, or I feel a spirit that has passed recently, their their spirit presence or their spirit energy is denser to me. And I don't know how, I really think that's the only way I can kind of explain it in its simplest form. It just feels thicker, it feels denser. It shows itself denser too when I'm in my clairvoyancy. And so when the pressure in my right ear goes, it is a spirit kind of passing, not kind of, spirit passing through me that wants to make its its presence known. And so that density in my right ear is like, whoa, 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 okay. I'm feeling that. Sometimes I don't move forward to identify that spirit. I have a lot going on in my lighted life. So sometimes I'm like, okay, see me later, or present it in another form. And generally I do see where it shows up later. Maybe it's in a reading, maybe it's in information that will come my way, but I always trust that it will find its way back to me. Another physical sensation that I get is palpitations right in my chest, right in my my sternum. Pa, 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 pa. And I know that when I get that, spirit is here to communicate. I don't get it every time spirit's here, but when I do get it, I know that is my clairsentience ability saying, okay, I'm sensing spirit here. Maybe I wasn't thinking spirit's here, but spirit's definitely here. So it's again uh, it's my physical sensation that really leads to validation as well. Like I don't need to ask. I know that when I'm feeling that this is what happens. Another sensation I get is earth plane calls it goosebumps. I call them truth bumps at the right timing, in the right setting. So when someone says something or I say something in when I'm opening to my channels, and I get this sensation that goes through my entire body, and it just feels like a goosebump that just goes from head to toe, tingle, 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 tingle. I know that that is, yes, it's an accent. Yes, that is validation that there is truth that was just said or felt or is present, wherever the context of that conversation is at that present time, that's confirmation to me. And I preface that with, ego can't manufacture your body to do that. It is your higher self. It is that lighted realm of our beings that is trying to communicate with us. And light is always right. And that is just another way of just kind of understanding how your body works sometimes. So I've heard people say, oh, my left leg tingles when A, B, and C. And I always say, pay attention to that. If you notice that happens, well, once in a while or often, when does it happen? What is happening at the time that that happens? Because very often, and I want to say very clearly, it is a psychic ability. It is your higher self trying to give you those answers that you are seeking. And again, because I am a medium, a spiritual medium that really looks for answers of concreteness, I know my higher self is also working as an alliance for me, and even in my clairsentience ability. And the last one I just want to move to is emotions. Sometimes, and I have a strong boundary with emotions when it comes spirits coming through, and I certainly can sense them, I can relay them. But sometimes the emotions that come through are so intense that they move me to tears in an instant. It's almost like it's like a light switch going on and off. I'm like talking, then all of a sudden I'm crying. And I have boundaries, but I do allow lighted spirits to communicate what they need for the sitter, because I work 100%. I know that's human words, but I work 100% for the sitter. I I try and open my channels and give them everything that they need as in as much clarity as I can deliver. So I do. It does come through on occasion, just the tears or just that sense of sadness, and I will also relay that to them in the context of the reading. So when I'm validating using my clairsentience, and for those of you that are getting to know me, I am constantly validating in all areas of my life. So I do always start with a prayer, especially it's more personally than professionally, because personally I'm looking for an answer and I'm not in the midst of a reading. In the midst of a reading, I'm really validating in all different ways and firing off a bazillion miles a minute in my thoughts. But when I'm in my personal places, um, I have a validation prayer, and I encourage you to take it on, and if it feels right, then it is. If it feels right, then it is right. Take it, edit it, make it your own. I always start with this prayer starter: enlighten love and my highest best good. Dot 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 dot. So what I would ask, or would I send my intent, and I feel like I'm moving in a lighted realm. No matter what my question is, I feel like I prefaced it where I want, please tell me what's going to be best for me. And I will say that spirit sometimes is best is very ambiguous to the spirit world. So you have to really define with concreteness exactly, because best might be, and I'm going to go really high for you right now, is I'm going to go out the door, I'm going to hit by a train. Is my day going to be good today? Yeah, and I go and get hit by a train. And certainly most people go, "Well, how is that good?" And the spirit world, if they could explain, would say, "Well, you just move back home, so you're good." I'm being that is a super embellishment, but again, the universe sees things very concrete. So I always say, watch your verbs. Really, really pay attention to those verbs, because those are the action words. So when you're asking for validation or you're working into that. And again, light is always right. And clairsentience is that feeling that you get without asking for it. Because if you're asking for it, sometimes, depending on the ask goes, you're using your mind, you're using your thinking, which is not going to bring you to a lighted place. So always just say what comes in, what comes in, what comes in. Send your intent, but trust what just kind of comes without asking for it in that very moment. Because sometimes we involve more thinking than the physical, the psychic ability coming in. So professionally, as I mentioned earlier, when I'm validating using clairsentience, I really do get my answers when my physical sensations validate it for me. So if I was feeling dizzy, I'm already validated that my feeling is that someone or wherever I am in the reading, and maybe I use another psychic ability to kind of rein that in, but there is a mental illness, depression in the physical world, or chaos. So that dizzy, that physical sensation really is validating for me. But certainly I could ask and move forward and say, how do I resonate? Does it feel light? Does it feel light that I have that understanding of what dizzy is? Yeah, that feels light. Okay, light is right. Don't underestimate it. It really is that simple mantra of trust, and you will resonate. You will keep resonating and keep understanding how you fit in with your in your physical and your psychic abilities. It's a beautiful and I mean more in the psychic ability, more than the physical. I know I'm talking more about the physical sensations, but it really is, how does it come in without asking? How does it resonate with you? Again, thinking, the true word of thinking is not in the lighted realm. So kind of feel that out. If I were to validate using clairsentience and personally, say a friend is talking to me and she states that something she's feeling like she needs to make a change, and she really thinks that looking for a new job really feels good for her. And if I get those truth bumps, or I get those goosebumps, truth bumps, sensations, whatever you want to call that, I would speak to her and I say, you know what, you're onto something. I just got really strong validation on that. That doesn't mean that she is going to find a new job. It doesn't mean that because I always say validation doesn't always mean happiness and goodness. It's just the road of purpose that I'm meant to go on for whatever reasons. And sometimes that purpose is meeting a challenge as well. So when I get the right answers that feel light, that doesn't always mean they're 100% wonderful. And in fact, very often it's just a roadway to get to where I need to get to. So you really have to keep opening yourself to the light and walking towards the light. So I'm now at my very personal share, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on it. I really just kind of want to um, move you to this moving experience that I had using my clairsentience in the physical sensation. So I was at a family member's passing. It was an older person, and I had asked their spirit at the time, before their passing and around their passing, if I could experience their passing of in their passage from the earth's plane of existence to the other, whether some people call it heaven, some people call it the other side, some people are not really sure what it is, but they do feel like there's something more on the other side. So I leave you to your truths. And so I was sitting in a chair at the time of this experience, and my eyes were closed in the corner of the room because I was working to feel this experience. I knew this time was coming, and it was very near, and the family was around the bed. It was in a nursing home, and they were around the bed. And this family member was in the throes of her bodily organs shutting down, and the breath sensation, and we all know what that feels, or maybe we've heard about that. It is a very difficult passing to watch as a family member. And so again, I was sitting in my chair with the eye closed, removed from the group, but in the same room. And as her spirit left this plane, she moved through my physical body, just as I had asked. And I want to say I had a difficult time putting this experience into human words, so I'm going to do my best. I kind of touched upon it in my mediumship, but as she passed through my body, there was a vibration that I felt was so intense. I talked about the pressure in my right ear earlier, but this was in my entire body. And it was painful, as I mentioned earlier too, the density of, and how energy is neither created nor destroyed, it just gets transferred. So that energy was still so dense of human form. So that energy was still very dense with human form. Not that it was human any longer. I hope that makes sense, a little bit of sense too. And that vibration was going through my body, and it was extremely painful. It was unyielding. There was no ebbs and flows. It was just a constant, painful humming. It felt like a humming train that was truly going through me. And it became so powerful that I had to ask it to stop. I couldn't sustain that feeling. And I do have a fairly high tolerance to pain, but it wasn't pain. It was just, I just felt like there was a shaking and a humming that was unrelenting. And in trueness of Earth's time frame is probably only maybe a few minutes. I'm really not sure, but it wasn't much more than that. And later that day, when I spoke with my daughter, who knew the experience I was asking to claim, she had looked back at some points, and she said that she had seen my shirt actually fluttering. And so that did confirm to me what I was feeling physically. And and it validated my experience, and it was something so beautifully special, and truly, this family member was so at peace moving to the other side, and their loved ones had come too. I could clearly see them and moving them to the other side. It was a beautiful experience, but again, I use please, I take that from my spiritual perspective, and I leave it here. If you want to claim it as your truth, please take it, but I leave it with me. That was my experience, and something I'm going to take for the rest of my physical life, and that entire experience that I chose to share with you today. Clairsentience or clear feeling can be the most draining of all the psychic senses. Entering a room full of people or the office or even a family function can hit a person with a heightened ability to feel others' energies, especially a true empath whose psychic sense is always at a heightened level. I use this psychic ability in different ways in a reading. At times, I sense how a person enters a reading and feel their emotion. Other times, my physical body feels human events that speak to my light. Feeling dizzy or heart palpitations or palpitations in the chest or tooth bumps and goosebumps that occur in my both personal and professional validations are really physically felt and work as a sign of communication from the lighted realm. Always remember, your spirit or higher self is always working as an ally to help you on your journey. Keep your heart open for how you feel and always call on a simple mantra for validation. If it feels light, it is right. Thank you so much for allowing me to accompany you on your journey. We have so much to learn together. If you have a topic you feel would be beneficial to spiritual growth, feel free to DM me at Cheryl Bradley Medium or email me at hello@cherylbradley.com. Listening to today's episode, I hope you gained an abundance of light to carry you until the next time we are together. Keep the title of this podcast circling with you today and every day. If it's light, it's right. Have a beautiful day.